Good evening and happy Tuesday. Welcome back to another episode of the Collegiate Exclusive Podcast, episode 4. We're back to our regularly scheduled Tuesday for this week, and actually we don't have a ton to talk about, thanks to our delayed episode last week. But before we get into all that, start talking CRL and everything, TJ. How you doing, my man?
I'm doing quite wonderful. I mean, once again, Tuesday is a funny day for me because we're right, or at least I am right out of class. I also didn't have any garbage bags in my apartment, so I'm currently chewing gum during the podcast, which is a big no-no. So apologies, but I guess it's very podcast fashion. So we're gonna have a time tonight,
dude. I come straight from work for all these podcasts, so I think we both just kind of show up and hop on. Although I do make some graphics in the meantime. Graphics a segment short this week. Unfortunately, I just could not get any replays to Data Coach, even though there are, I'm sure, a ton of them from CRL on Sunday. So that partnership will be back maybe in a couple episodes. I know he and I will both be in Boston this weekend. So if any of you out there are in Boston, let's definitely meet up. TJ, once again, I'm gonna miss you at LAN. We're gonna have to connect on a LAN pretty soon here.
I mean, it sounds like we will be seeing each other in the next probably less than a month from some behind-the-scenes activity, which you guys will hear about very soon. But also, if you're going to see Bepic at Boston, you will probably see me at a very, very, very upcoming soon Collegiate LAN. So news on that soon.
All right, well, let's get into it. We'll talk about the LANs when they arrive, because we have CRL online play to talk about, and Sunday I think was a massive success for the scene. We had the first 8 league play spots filled, and it went to these 8 teams, and it was scrappy. I mean, look at that. 4 of the 8 that made it, they took a loss in kind of an unexpected fashion. I think you can call all 4 of those losses kind of unexpected at the time. So we'll talk about the top 4 that qualified through uppers, because TJ, stop me if you hear a team that doesn't really fit into this group, or at least the notion of this group. We got Maryville, they qualified 5-0. Winthrop, they qualified 5-0. Northwood qualified 5-0. And Cumberland qualified in the top of the bracket. I mean, Cumberland, like, good team, but I don't know if they really fit in that group of teams. We'll talk about the expectations for them coming into the bracket.
Well, and I'm going to go ahead and say this. I mean, a lot of us were comparing experiences and histories within this Cumberland roster. And when you compare, like, for example, like, I know Hotshot's in chat, so he'll appreciate, let me finish my point before we react. I promise this is a good point. Like, Hotshot's experiences compared to Next, to Naya, to Polar, you feel like it's night and day. And not Polar, Hotshot is a very, very new recruit to the Cumberland system. He just got there last semester, I believe. So with that all together, not to mention, like, the in-game rank difference as well. Hotshot is a SL player, but, like, he's not Polar, he's not Naya, he's not RLCS experience in that fashion, right? But then he comes in, and I would argue that Cumberland with Hotshot looks better than the main Cumberland team did last year. I would argue right now they look like a true top 5 to 4 team. Now, granted, there's also a lot of talent that we're missing. We're still missing a Baylor. We're still potentially missing a Syracuse. We're still missing potentially an Akron Gold. Like, there is teams who are still good who can compete. But Hotshot looks not like a common SSL 1900 to 2K to 2.1K level rank B player. I unironically, like, he must be playing like a rank A player with Polar and Naya. They look incredible.
I was just looking up Hotshot's tracker to see where his peak is at. It's 2,100 over the summer. That's and so right. Good peak. Right now, I think he is around 900 or 1,900 in SSL. But, I mean, credit to him. We last week gave our accolades out. And Cumberland received everything. So they're not running it back. They got the team accolade from me, and the player accolade went to Hotshot for you. So, yeah, Hotshot, I think everyone knows that ranked is screwed up. I pretty much only look at peak rank from the last couple of years when I'm evaluating players now with how messed up ranked is. But still, like, really, really good result within CRL. That's another reason I don't look at like rankings when I'm doing my top 48s, is because it is so screwed up. I look at stuff like this CRL run from Cumberland here. I mean, they went through a pretty difficult bracket to make it to the top 4. But let's talk about the other 4 teams that did end up qualifying through lowers. As well, so we can get the full context of the qualification this past Sunday, because we also had Fisher end up making it. They lost to Columbia and then got some revenge on them to qualify for the top 8. Then St. Clair, crazy loss, probably the most insane loss of the tournament, losing to the Fanshawe Fuel in like round number 3 of uppers. It was insane. And then West Virginia lose to Northwood, they qualify through lowers. Concord lose to Akron, they qualify through lowers. And so I think, all things considered, this top 8 isn't too crazy considering all the insane results.
Well, I also think when you look at some of those closer pools, aka the extremely stacked pool 4 that was Concord, Cumberland, and Akron in the qual matches, not to mention like teams like Baylor on ping was in this pool, Leslie, Wichita State, like, you know, I do think that though Cumberland played really well, there was a few things that worked out in all of these teams in Pool 4's favor, and we'll talk about kind of that. But for the rest of the pools, I do think they were pretty clear-cut, except for the St. Clair loss. That was the only, I think, other result that I would say caught me off extreme guard. like even Northwood, for example, having to go against like West Virginia. Now, was a 3-0 unexpected? Absolutely. But was the win unexpected? I don't know. I mean, it's kind of a toss-up with the Cosmic signing, but unfortunately for them, with the way things stand, it looks like we're still seeing the same old West Virginia. And also, I didn't know this until I saw a tweet from Nick on RL, formerly the coach of teams like Team Queso. He's worked with Falcons in the past. Yeah. Now he works with M80 and this Northwood roster. Like, whatever Nick has been doing with this team, they look unstoppable as well already. And they manhandled a West Virginia team that should have been a threat. The other 3 pools were pretty clear cut, but pool 4, my God, what a mess.
All I'm going to say is, like, if Baylor qualifies in the next Open Qualifier, that Baylor-Northwood series is going to be an absolute banger, with North looking great, and what Baylor should look like come league play. Because if they show up to league play and disappoint like they kind of have been in this semester so far, then that's a rough beginning to the real start of the program for Baylor. But we'll cross that bridge when we get there, because let's talk brackets, because I think everyone else, maybe save for Fisher, on paper were supposed to qualify. Fisher was the seed number 9 over Ball State, who kind of tanked out. And so shout out Fisher. They and Cumberland were the 2 teams outside of the top 8 that ended up making it. And I mean, we talked about this last week, TJ, in kind of projecting who in the top 8 wouldn't end up making it, or who wasn't safe. And we said a couple of teams in that top 8 seeding range weren't going to make it. I think we're pretty dead on.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still kind of in a little bit of shock and awe in regards to what I was expecting coming into this weekend versus what we got. And there was a lot of discourse, and especially within the analyst chats, of which groups and pools were harder, which teams were going to kind of surprise. We also had no idea what Baylor and Boise's ping was going to look like, because when's the last time a contenders had to play from Hawaii in a North American event, right?
Probably never.
So I just like that changed everything for these pools. Obviously, teams like Cumberland, like Fisher, played well above their seeding, well above their ranks. Again, like I don't even know where to really start when talking about these pools. Like I'm just in shock, and I'm also, like you mentioned at the very beginning of the show, like I'm very happy with where CRL is at.
Well, let's start with Pool 1. I think we go in order here, because each pool had a similar amount of chaos. I think they all had results to talk about. I think the only consistent factor we had on Sunday was Maryville looking as good as they were supposed to look. They didn't drop but 1 game in that run, and shout out to Columbia for taking it off of them. I streamed that match, and Columbia were playing great. Down here, they beat Bruton Parker in upper semis to play Maryville for this position after upsetting Fisher a round before, and Columbia looked phenomenal. To beat Fisher on that day, they had to have been playing really well in that series, because when they got to Bruton Parker, they shut them down. They made Bruton Parker look like a bad team, and I mean, you and I watched them last night in the SCL. Bruton Parker looks solid at the moment. But then they get to Maryville, and it was like, you know, the Star Wars quote that where Qui-Gon Jinn says there's always a bigger fish. That's what it felt like when they got to Maryville, because I watched these two series back to back. They destroyed Bruton Parker, and then Maryville shut them down. And so for Columbia to get a game, I'm really impressed by them, but Maryville looked like early favorites to win all of CRL this semester.
Yeah, I mean, without a doubt, and on paper, because Baylor hasn't really looked too good at all, this is Maryville's CRL season the way it stands right now. And the one thing I am worried about when it comes to the content within CRL, I do worry that Maryville are going to be a length above the rest of the nation because of the way things stand. Now, granted, should teams like Baylor be competitive? Absolutely. Could we see another sleeper run where maybe Concord with a peaking Helix makes another championship run? I think that's on the table. But now with the way all these teams look, I think also any of the top 4 to 5 that we predict are going to be in that conversation. But again, Baylor still has to make league play. That's the first thing. That's got to happen. And also, with Pool 1, I don't want to discredit any of Maryville's results, because obviously these are great wins. But Pool 1 is not shaped to be a test for the number 1 team. It's shaped to be number 1 doing their job as expected against the 8 and the 9 seeds, and then the 8 and the 9 seeds battle it out. Or like kind of like that's like the way I would envision it. And then it's all of these kind of like mid-tier battles. Like, for example, Cleveland State, Florida, right? Penn State, Colorado, Akron Gold. Like, all these teams are ones who have previously been top 32, top 48. Florida Southern was in this group. Like, Pool 1 was not for Maryville to be tested. Let's be honest. I think all of the real conversations, especially for power ranking sakes, it's all going to come out of losers bracket.
Yeah, I was really astounded, actually, looking back on this. And there was so much chaos happening on Sunday that I didn't really evaluate just how deep this bracket is. But Tian just said it. And looking at it, I mean, this was a pretty deep bracket. I mean, Florida looking good. They beat Cleveland State, which I'm happy to see, because Florida had a rough loss last week. But coming into Maryville, you know, they get 2-0'd. Kennesaw State do what they have to do. And I guess, I mean, beating Penn State has to be a pretty good result now. They 2-0'd Akron Gold. And so Akron Gold kind of continued to disappoint. And then all of a sudden, Akron Gold goes from losing this to Penn State to now beating Ball State and eliminating them from the tournament after Ball State run up against Bruton Parker. So I don't know where we want to start in talking about the talking points here. Because I mean, these are all good teams that we could dive into the stories of, but I mean, do you want to start with the Ball State double elimination fail here, losing to Bruton Parker and Akron Gold?
I think we go up the skill list. I think we start with some of the sleeper results, because those are the easier conversations. So, like, in the winners bracket, let's go top to bottom, right? Like, Florida over Cleveland State in a 2-0. All right, great. Awesome. Good for them. Penn State over Akron Gold. Huge
really
shocker.
Good for them.
But also worth mentioning that Penn State, with the acquisition of Fahad, I mean, my lord. And is it? I don't know how you say his name. I apologize. Is it Nitri?
Nitri is what I was told in chats. Nitri.
Okay. Well, for Entry and Fahad, these two are disgusting. Tihan has also informed me it's actually Sentinel who is playing. So Sentinel is disgusting. And Fahad is not playing. So good to know. So Nitrous all of a sudden has these players who are extremely good around him. So Penn State is a team that we don't really get to see play in much of anything. And this is what CRL Quals is all about. You get a team that shows up out of nowhere. So credit to Penn State. And then going further down the list, we get to like a T-Grays versus Bruton Parker. Like, that was a scary series for Bruton Parker. But also T-Grays isn't playing anything. So at least we know they're still good, but they're not maybe a top 32 team, but they're good. And then outside of the sleeper results, that mostly covers that. I think there's one more that caught me a little off guard. And that was the Florida Southern match in losers round 5.
Okay.
That was a 2-0 for Florida. That one caught me a little off guard. And then also the Akron Gold going back-to-back game 3s against Central Michigan and Colorado to then beat Ball State. And then now we can transition into those points now.
I don't even know what to make of this run from Akron Gold, because they shouldn't be losing to Penn State. Penn State looked good, yes, but Akron Gold still have enough experience. Like, this is Jonathan's last semester, so you know he's motivated to still be getting good results. And Patty even if he's on low hours because of work, like, this is still a great team on paper. And they lose to Penn State, and then you're right, back-to-back game threes, which they win, fair enough, they're best of threes, anything can happen. But they beat Ball State. I think this is kind of a really low point for this Ball State team that I was personally very high on. I mean, top 8 in my rankings, top 8 in seeding for CRL, and they come out and they lose to Bruton Parker and they lose to Akron Gold, and in those series it's 2-0. They don't even get a game there, and I don't know what to make of it. I didn't get to watch those series, but I mean, Ball State, was it a bad day, or do you think they're in for a rough first half of the semester?
Well, I wish BK was in chat because I don't want to say something that might be like too much of a stretch. But here's what I will say based off what we do know. Ball State was at a point where they were going to swap Wova out last semester. And then right before CRL quals began, they decided to keep Wova. So the way that I perceive it, I believe that similar to Cumberland, there was an issue where 2 players felt really good or 1 player felt really good, and then the third man gets outcasted, and then there's a tryout period, and then things can go wrong or things can go right. Luckily for Cumberland, you have a experienced, I think, competitor mentally in Hotshot, who's a level-headed, decent dude. Now, this is where I get confused on the other hand, is that for Ball State, I've met and played with Phoebes. He's a good kid. Yeah. Like, he's a good guy. He's not a bad person. So I don't know if this is Phoebes' fault, but based on RLCS for Oath and Go, based on previous performances last split, I feel like there was something wrong between those two. That's where I stand. Because when you play a team like Akron Gold, who is good, but shouldn't be a clean 2-0 against you, that means that something didn't get conversated on or brought up mid-game or mid-series, or people were upset and playing angry. Like, something mentally went horribly wrong, and I don't think it was on Phoebes. I believe it was on the 2 veterans. That's where I decipher this one. Okay. But I don't know.
For speculation, I like it, and we'll see what comes of Ball State now, because they have to perform in the second qualifier, because that team should be a shoo-in. That split number 2 of CRL last semester, they make it no problem, and they should be in the now expanded league play format come the spring. But shout out to Bruton Parker. Them getting a win over Ball State, and we watched them in the SCL last time. We won't really talk about that series, but they kind of outconfidence Florida Southern in the SCL, and I think that contributes or goes well with their run here in this CRL bracket, which I'll pull it back up as they drop down. They get rid of Penn State as well, deeper into the bracket, but then they run straight into Fisher, and Fisher, after their loss to Columbia in uppers, went on a tear. They got rid of an Akron Gold team that just beat Ball State. They 3-0 Kennesaw State. They 3-0 Bruton Parker. They 3-0 Columbia to qualify for league play. So shout out to Fisher for taking that L on the chin and then tearing that lower bracket up.
Yeah, I mean, I really, really was concerned for Fisher when they lost to Columbia, but also this is what best of threes are all about. And Royale has made a pretty funny tweet about it, talking about that best of threes for the biggest quals of the year are pretty ridiculous. And I do agree with him to an extent, because the way that this pool is seeded, these are the teams who get hurt the most by best of threes, because this is a much tighter pool in the earlier rounds. So with that, Fisher takes advantage of the earlier rounds. I mean, they dominate once they lose to Columbia. And I honestly think for Fisher, a team that is a pretty much a brand new reform team, right? They brought Justice back. They bring in Ivan. Royales is still new to the system and new to North America. Like, for all the news in this team, for them to take that loss to Columbia, I think that was a must-have for this team to play the way that we believe they could play. And that's why they went 9-0 against 3 incredible teams.
Well, I think there's one more result in here that I wanted to point out, and this is unfortunately a diss on Cleveland State, because they started out fairly high in the rankings after going 2-0 undefeated into NECC Division 1, but they lost out to Virginia Tech B, like the B team of Virginia Tech, and I don't know what went wrong in the CSU camp, if it was an internet thing or if they just had a really bad day, and if they showcased a floor a lot lower than what we were expecting. But they lose to Florida, which, fair enough, those are 2 teams that are around the 30 to 40 ranking range, but losing to Virginia Tech B in and lowers is pretty bad. Best of 3 or not.
Yeah, I didn't even catch that one. I'm not gonna lie. So good
I don't blame
on
you. So far back, I can't blame you.
Yeah, I didn't even realize, because we talked about Cleveland State in the upper bracket, and then I was like, oh, I guess they just lost, and then I didn't realize they lost that early. Also, for those of you asking who are on these rosters, the B team has some rank grinders you may recognize. Like, I recognize Acid Duck and Select from the B team, and also on the A team you have Silent and Blazer. I recognize those names, so they're a decent team. Both of them are, but like, come on now, like they're not absurd. Like they're not incredible. Like Virginia Tech lost to Florida Southern, and Virginia Tech B lost to Pyrex' team. Which, all due respect to Pyrex, but like, what is a CSTJ? I'm TJ.
They're a panda.
Like,
It's a panda.
What is a CSTJ?
I didn't know colleges actually had pandas as their mascots, but you know, shout out CST. Shout out the 4-letter schools. They've been on the up and up. We got Long Beach Community College. I mean, WCTC up there. They're making a name for themselves.
Yeah, well, and there's a lot of people talking in chat. Again, they're rank grinders, so people are talking about it. So yeah, I mean, if it was the A team that beat Cleveland State guys,
sure,
yeah, we'd have a conversation to have. But the B team, yeah, I'm not exactly a fan or a believer in that. So that's pool 1. That is, I think that's everything pool 1.
Yeah, I think the biggest takeaways are Columbia is going to be a very good team this semester, but Fisher already is a really good team, and Maryville is national championship ready. They're ready to come back with a vengeance this semester. Those are the stories to take away, and we'll analyze the teams that didn't make it come Qual 2, February 28th. But let's move along to the next pool. This is pool number 2, the pool that I think a lot of the Indiana Tech boys in chat were waiting for us to get to. So let's get into it. Pool number 2, this is Winthrop's pool. They were the top seed here, and they ended up qualifying through uppers without any hassle outside of their Tech affair. A Game 5 against Winthrop, who didn't drop games outside of going to Game 5 against Indiana Tech here. So shout out to the Tech boys. But Winthrop qualifying, I don't think that's any big surprise. I thought they could struggle, which we talked about last Thursday, because we hadn't seen Garrett G and any officials this semester. I didn't know what their prep would be like, and they almost stumbled, but they didn't. They make it.
Yeah, and also in terms of kind of like, I'm going to do the same thing where kind of we talk about the back of the pack and then moving our way up. But I will very quickly say that for Indiana Tech going to Game 5, it's a great result for these guys.
Yeah.
There was maybe a few question marks because we don't get to see Indiana Tech play too much of the top talent, like the top 4 or the top 8. We don't get to see them play a lot of that talent. So great result for them. We'll get to losers for them in a second. Mm-hmm. But now I do want to talk about some of the lower end results.
Let's do it.
So there's a lot of sleeper results in this pool, specifically in round 2. I think the most important one is that Big Wade University unfortunately loses to Carthage Red. I think that right there is probably the most important result of the entire pool.
Yeah.
But jokes aside, Northern Illinois loses to Delaware. That is a huge top 48 sleeper pick. That is a very, very confusing loss for Northern Illinois. That is the A team losing to Delaware, so let that be known. UTA JV, the Texas teams, they've been moving low key. Not just UTD, but UTA, they've been low-key moving. But George Mason, makes quick work of them. Bruton Parker B, there we go. They had a fairly decent showing. I mean, you go against George Mason, so be it. We'll get to losers in a second. The elephant in the room is obviously St. Clair Green and Fuel. Dude. So we can go down to that because I'm going to save my Fisher Navy comments for our next point. So let's talk about St. Clair Fuel.
I didn't know much about Fuel coming into this. I know they've kind of been in the top 48 conversations previously with different iterations of the roster, but Oase in my chat on Sunday was saying that Reeker is apparently raw. McLean as well got some shout outs in Twitch chat, and this is what I get from these players before they come onto my radar in series like this, is people in my Twitch chat being like, yo, that dude is a ranked grinder, or actually really, really good on the ball, something like that. And that's what I got from Fuel after seeing this result, because St. Clair Green losing in a best of 3 straight up 2-0 to Fuel Esports was not something I ever expected. I thought they might have a rough qualifier when they get to like Oklahoma Christian, not Fuel 2 rounds previous, which is an insane result. And they do end up qualifying. Shout out to the Saints for recovering in lowers. But I mean, Fuel, they beat St. Clair and then vanish like the wind, losing to Fisher Navy in the next round.
Well, and a lot of people in the chat are bringing this up. I think one thing that people weren't expecting was having to play St. Clair Green so early. So Fuel, I really do think of all the single-handed winners round 3 results that kind of ruin brackets. I think this one, without a doubt, is the most impactful, because then the argument is, like, of all of the winners quarterfinals, you get a Fisher Navy Fuel game, which makes no sense to me, just for OC to do what we expect OC to do. But St. Clair Green went down and really, really took out a lot of big names, and we're going to talk about that in a second. Also, a lot of people are talking about McLean on the Fuel side, who is a rank grinder. There must have been something in the air about ranked like 2,300 players in CRL and getting these crazy wins. But also, like, there is not even a lick of an argument as to why St. Clair should lose that series. So I just want to let that be public, because I respect people like McLean who, if they want to grind 2s and they want to be known that way, you know what? They're great players. I believe it. But I am very, very confused. I would argue this was the most confusing result of the season, without a doubt.
Well, other teams capitalized as a result of that. Oklahoma Christian, Fisher Navy got to go a little bit further in the brackets, though that kind of lends itself to a longer wait in lowers once you make it there. But Oklahoma Christian, they got their shot at Winthrop, didn't have to beat St. Clair to get there. And they beat Lubbock Christian as well here, which is a pretty decent result for OC, because, I mean, LCU, for those that don't know, they've got Beastie now, and honestly didn't really do much with him. I'm worried that we might see a similar story this semester from Lubbock Christian, because Fuel in the lower bracket, they lose to Fisher Navy and then, get through Bruton Parker Academy, fair enough, and then they beat Lubbock Christian, and then they run face first into Indiana Tech. But still, I Fuel seemed good for one crazy win per side of the bracket.
I mean, I'm also, I apologize for being kind of in shock for this whole episode, but, again, every single dang result is a storyline. Like, LCU losing to Fuel, I think, was probably one of the most, for me and you, who study the top 64, I would argue very heavily, definitely more than most, and more than anybody else in the scene, I'd say. Teams like LCU, even going against maybe a low-end fan favorite like Fuel, right? Like, LCU has no excuse, in my opinion, to be losing these games, to be losing to Fuel. Not to mention, even from a power ranking perspective, these two teams were pretty dang far apart, like probably about 15 to 20 spaces apart from one another. So if Fuel was hot, that's great, but I would argue LCU, even at their floor, shouldn't be losing these games. And we got robbed of an Indiana Tech LCU matchup, which I think would have been a blast to watch. So, disappointment, I think, goes really, really heavily on specifically this side of the bracket, because also Carthage Red got 2-0'd by Northeastern. And I love Harlequin, I love Northeastern, but they're a shell of their former team. And Carthage Red is supposed to be one of the hotter teams in the nation, especially coming from Div 2 making Div 1. So a very, very oddly disappointing losers round 4 and 5 here.
I love Hotshot's comment. Pool 2 is the pool of doom and despair, and that's what it feels like for a lot of these teams. Just straight up disappointment. Like LCU, disappointment. St. Clair Green up here, bit of disappointment. I mean, in the lower bracket, Carthage, really disappointment. I had them as a potential top 32 team coming into this semester, and they've lost that status for now, and they can gain it back. But I mean, Indiana down here losing to Maryland. Not a bad loss, but that's still a team that's trying to kind of pick themselves up by the bootstraps, and then, trail of doom and despair and carnage in the lower bracket. Shout out Fuel for this one. They forced UGA to play St. Clair this early on in the bracket. I mean, that's the tournament favorite. It's having to go up against the Saints of St. Clair, and that's a early 2-0 exit for the Bulldogs. But it was the springboard that St. Clair needed, because then they rattle off wins against Winthrop Academy, George Mason, Maryland, Fisher Navy, and they go up here, beat Indiana Tech, and then 3-0 Oklahoma Christian. More doom and despair for OC, who gets swept in both of their qual series. But St. Clair Green, they lose to Fuel and still make it.
Yeah, we were entirely robbed of a lot of sleeper runs. Like, for example, I'm really happy that Indiana Tech still made it to loser semifinal, because they deserved a shot, and they were one game away from getting that shot. And that series versus OC, I'm sure would have been cinema. But St. Clair, when they get to the matches that matter, and chat was already talking about this earlier, St. Clair will not fumble when it comes to the absolute bare minimum matchup. And they showed that in loser semis, in all of their losers matches prior, and also losers final. But also, we were robbed of runs from sleeper teams like a George Mason, who were in a really, really miserable seeding spot. I mean, George Mason goes up against a great Indiana Tech roster. They go down and loses round 5, and you have to play the best seed in your pool. Like that, or the second best seed, or potentially best. I'm not sure how it was seeded here. It was Winthrop above them, I believe. So second best. Either way, like miserable result. Like I'm happy for Maryland. You get to play Indiana. Like that's an awesome D1 result and a very good result for that Maryland team. And then you get St. Clair. And also, I'm going to be the first to say this as well. There has been a lot of conversation regarding how good Fisher Navy is, because on paper, they should be a top 32 team. They should be in that conversation, and they could punch higher than that on paper. But then they've had some really weird losses, some very confusing moments, and you're going to look at this and say, oh, okay, they made it to St. Clair, da-da-da. But I would even argue that people need to look at Fisher Navy's results. They played nobody until Winthrop University Garnet. They 2-0 them. Then they play Fuel, 2-0 them. Then they get walloped 3-0 by OC. And then you play St. Clair. So I just want to make sure people are looking at the results, because for both Fisher and Fuel, those are two completely different losers bracket runs. Fuel deserves probably a power rankings boost, but Fisher Navy, I'm not impressed by any of their wins. Like even the Fuel win, I don't even know how to feel about that yet.
Yeah,
because I need to see Fuel play again. But like, I just want to bring up the conversation about both those teams, because those are teams we both were like, okay, they're top 48 hopefuls, they're top 32 hopefuls, but now it's like, where do you value them, right? So I wanted to bring that to the forefront.
Yeah, I mean, this is the win right here that makes it weird. And we can talk more about this when we look at the colleague poll, because Fisher Navy was one of those teams that placed in the top 30 in the colleague poll that I didn't think deserved it at all. And I've already made my arguments on stream, but I'll do it again because, that's what streaming is for. And so we'll rehash that argument in a bit here. But is there anything else we want to talk about here? Indiana Tech, 2 Game 5s against top 8 seeds. They lose in Game 5 to Winthrop. They lose in Game 5 to St. Clair, and so they fall short, but like 2 quality losses.
Yeah, I unironically, like, they're gonna qual. Like, I'll put money on it today. Like they are. Like, I mean, I'm not even gonna hesitate in saying that. Like, I don't think that's a controversial take. Like, of all the mess of teams and the way they were playing, like now in Qual 2, you get all of the troll teams, you get the Concords out, you get the St. Clairs out, you get them all out of the way, which means now you get true Rocket League. And if there's one dang team that actually showed up this weekend out of all the pools and actually looked how we expected them to, it goes Indiana Tech.
All right.
They looked incredible. Like, especially when you look at a team like OC. Like, if those two teams would have played on that day with the amount of time that OC had to wait as well, like, I think Indiana Tech wins that series to qual if they beat St. Clair. I really think they do. And maybe I'm delusional, maybe I am, but that's where I stand on it. Like, I was originally very skeptical whenever Indiana Tech brought in Reshiram and Velocity.
Yeah.
Been a long day. Reshiram. Whenever they brought them in originally, like, I was very skeptical, especially seeing Bluey play with the Chippy squad originally and then all of a sudden develop into this brand new player. Like, I now believe in this rank B to rank B plus pipeline to being a rank A RLCS level player. Bluey's doing it. Hotshot's in the middle of doing it right now. I think he's a wild card that you can't control. And as long as Velocity and Reshiram can put their differences aside from what we hear and can just show up and play like this, I think they qual through losers, no problem.
All right. Well, we're definitely going to have to lay down some predictions after we go through all the pools as to who we think will make it next qual. It wouldn't be the podcast without that. We didn't put together a top 48 this week. We're just looking at how these results mostly would have changed our rankings from last week, for everyone wondering. So no top 48 from either of us, no updated at least. So we'll have to drop some predictions once we go through all these pools. But let's go pool 3. Because this was the Northwood and West Virginia pool, as West Virginia were the top seed coming into it, and they lose 3-0 to Northwood. Shout out to Northwood, as we've already talked about. But let's go through those sleeper picks, because Boise State in this pool and Baylor in the next one. They were playing from Hawaii. They had 144 ping, but still a good win for Ball State Black here, I think.
Yeah, I mean, and Ball State Black was a team that we had, I would say, a fairly decent amount of stock in. I mean, granted, there's questions on players like Yags and Ultor, and can they punch well above their weight like Wova has been able to do with Oath and Ga. So with a win over Boise State, regardless of ping, that's incredible. I'm at the point where the wins over Baylor and Boise State, I think you can still put at least maybe 60% stock into it.
Okay.
So this is a great win for Ball State Black. Now, does it change Boise State's ranking on the poll? Maybe by a few spots. And I think it's the same for Ball State Black. And I would even say the same thing for the Baylor losses as well. So that's where I stand on this. Great result, but there is maybe half an asterisk on it.
Well, looking further left on the bracket here, York, a team that popped into the top 32 at the end of last semester. They end up losing to South Carolina here, and York's one of those teams in the top 40 that don't play in anything outside of CRL, and so I don't know what to make of this result, and we'll look at where they go out in the lower bracket. But South Carolina doing exactly what was expected of them, getting their first round win, beating York as well, and then running into West Virginia, unfortunately for them. But Shawnee State and Kaiser kind of doing similar things, beating the team below them, but then they play a really good roster in the next round. St. Clair Gold, they kind of started to go on a run in this bracket, and it started out by beating James Madison. You lose to Northwood, but I mean, pool 3 right now, for all the chaos that we got on Sunday, it's pretty standard here.
Yeah, I mean, and for every great and supportive take I have, I'm going to throw a bad take with it. I have absolutely no idea how St. Clair Gold found their way to qual match in this pool.
Ooh.
I am overly confused as to what, like, now granted, like, this team's got experience. Fatal, Fabso, Bears. Like, this team is not bad. Don't get me wrong. But if I'm picking them over an Ole Miss or a Ball State Black, then it must not be me. It must be a different person. Because I personally believe that those two teams should have been in the spot. Also, the Davenport Black loss, not to mention them losing in losers to St. Clair Gold, but also the loss that they took in, they lost to Northwood. I thought they lost earlier. I take that back. But the fact they lost St. Clair Gold, I think that is a really, really bad loss for Davenport. Even though St. Clair Gold is a much better version of themselves, I am very, very shocked they made it to qual match. And, you know, people can make their takes on who's going to qual for next qual too. This is one of the teams that I think I'm going to be one of the more unpopular opinions, and I actually don't think they qual. I think this was a one-off. I'm not going to lie.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we rated the West Virginia, or it was the St. Clair stream after my stream ended, and so I watched the end of that West Virginia series, and they were honestly peaking against WVU. I didn't watch any of their other series in this pretty impressive run, beating Ole Miss, Ball State Black, and Davenport to get to this point, but they looked so clean against West Virginia. It was really impressive. So it's good to know that they've got that in them, but I'm in a similar vein with you. It's been the St. Clair Gold way. I mean, they have experience, they have talent, and they can show peaks like this. But when it comes to consistency, they've struggled the last several semesters to maintain form like this. So I think I'm in a similar vein to you. But let's start again on the left side of the bracket here, because York, They lose to Mount Union in the lower bracket, and Shawnee State lose to Houston here. I mean, these are decent teams. Mount Union's a Division II team in NACC, and Houston's a decent team as well. But like, York and Shawnee State were top 48 locks last semester, and now they're losing to these teams in the lower bracket here of CRL.
I mean, and again, like, I hate to be the bad guy, but like, we have to have an honest conversation about the state of Shawnee State, right? Like,
oh, it's bad. You're not the bad guy. You're just being realistic here. It's bad.
I feel like I'm going to sound mean here, but I'm just going to say it. Like when you lose Duckworth, a player who is rank A, on his worst day, he's at the top of B+. I believe he's a rank A player, obviously. But like, replacing him with Spooky, who has been up and down from GC 2 and 3, like, it's just, this team is bound to fail. Like, and also, like, I love Slayer. I love my boy Blade. Like, he's a very funny dude. I've seen him at 1,000 different lands. Like, love that guy to death. But Shawnee State doesn't have the leadership to win. They don't have the experience in a team captain. Like, Slayer is a great coach, and when you take him off the field and you put him in a purely mentally focused role and a calm focused role, I think he's great. I think he's a really, really good coach. But I don't think he's a game changer as a player. He's consistent. He uses an Octane ZSR, but he's not going to flip reset over half your team. And Taco Stash, I also believe, isn't going to do much of the same at all. So,
oh, he can flip reset over your whole team. Come on now. Taco Stash has been carrying this team to wins.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's like when in a CRL qualifier, like I don't think the consistency is there. Like he's great. Don't get me wrong, but I don't think he's not gonna be the needle mover for a CRL qual for a multiple hour-long event. Now, granted, again, the Houston loss is bad. Don't get me wrong, but it also did go to Game 3, so read into that what you will. And then I'm also gonna segue into some small sleeper results here. York University, that is the Bosco team, right under that game, played against Mount Union, which has a few players that you guys might recognize. Zanny and Thunder are the two that I recognize from ranked. I'm a little confused as to how this York team kind of struggled, but at the same time, this is also in a similar boat to Shawnee State. Like you have one player who's pretty good, and then you have two other players who are like kind of struggling. So unfortunately, Bosco couldn't make it happen. And then the other big result, I guess two technically, and I'll let you kind of spearhead this conversation. James Madison UTD JV. We get another Texas Dallas JV win, and then which parlayed into a Boise State win, which we'll talk about that. But also South Carolina gets beat by Conestoga, and I don't know how I feel about that result.
I'm actually not too surprised about this result. South Carolina is a good team, but when it comes to playing top 48 rosters, I still don't think they are a consistent lock to be beating these teams that are ranked below them. I think if you put them against like a Florida Southern or a Conestoga or like a UNCC as well, potentially, like these are still teams that can beat South Carolina if turn up and SJT are having a rough game, because Og isn't the hard carrying that he was anymore. I think honestly, when you're looking at the guy that kind of carries the mantle of on-ball space creator, it's kind of become SJT. Like Og is still solid, but he doesn't play that similar role all the time like he used to with that Cats and Solar team. Like he still can take over a lobby, but he's not the type that'll do it every single series like he used to. And so for Conestoga, if they're playing well in a best of 3 especially, I think they definitely can beat South Carolina, because Conestoga still a good team. Like they have been slowly building. This isn't the first semester this trio's playing together, and so Conestoga have been doing quite well. They're building a name for themselves, and I think they should be a top 48 lock at this point. I think they snuck in. They were like 47 on my list last week over UT Dallas, and they actually beat UTD in NACE, and now they've got a run like this where they're beating pretty threatening squads in bracket play, like South Carolina, like UTD JV, who ended up beating James Madison down here, and Boise State. And this is one of those where with Boise playing on high ping, I'm not surprised this happened, because UTD JV are a really, really good sleeper team. Like they beat UTA on stream last semester. They beat them again in SCL this week. And now they have a run like this where they're beating a top 48 team in James Madison, beating Boise State on high ping. I'm not surprised at all, because UT Dallas, you can't let the JV moniker next to their name confuse you. This is still a team with top 48 potential.
I mean, what an incredible week for this Texas Dallas team. I mean, they handle an in-state rival in Texas Arlington, without the Twitter drama this year. And then they go into CRL quals, and these are really, really good quality wins. Like, even if you were making preseason rankings, like even the Arizona State win is, great on them. Great on them. And then they get James Madison, really good sleeper result for them. Yeah, and the 2 over Boise State caught me completely off guard. Not to mention that game 1, which was actually reported with the right goal count, it was a 4-1. So Boise just really, really struggling to compete on ping. But also, Boise State at the Lamb did beat Baylor. So that goes to show you that if we get a Boise State on maybe even 110, 120 ping, maybe that's the difference maker. Maybe that does it. Maybe they qualify, or maybe they get to qual match. Who knows, right? But yeah, I hate they didn't even get the chance. But, you're playing from Hawaii. I'm not sure what more you can do.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, somebody had to stop UTD-JV. And when you talk about UTD-JV trying to punch into the top 48 conversations, got to beat a team like Conestoga. But they're right there. They're right on the edge.
Shows you how competitive teams in, like, honestly, the 33 through 60-ish range, like, they're all trading wins this semester. We have so many programs with, like, enough support and or passion in them that we're getting getting constant results. It's honestly just who's feeling better on the day, who's got the best circumstances on the day. And at this point, we're looking at like more prep from a lot of teams, because we're seeing results in leagues like NACE and NECC who are able to prep a little bit more. It's no longer just show up and play your opponent blind. You need to know a little bit about your opponent. And with a lot of good community broadcasts and team streams, like we're actually getting tape on schools like these pretty consistently. Yeah. So we're moving in a good direction on that front. But let's keep moving along, because the top 48 teams kind of faltered once they got to the more solid names. Davenport did 3-0 Conestoga, as they should, as the gatekeeper team that we thought they were. But then St. Clair Gold, I mean, I didn't get to see that this run until they played West Virginia, but I have to imagine they were just peaking on the day.
Well, or I mean, I'm going to throw this in there as well. Like, Davenport is also a team that lacks very strong, confident leadership. And also, they have struggled ever since adding Bolte. They've struggled to find real consistent success. They'll get a result here and there, and they are a good team. Absolutely, they are. But I don't know what's going on in the Davenport camp right now in terms of why this roster can't really even find themselves in the consistent top 12 conversations like they were all of last semester. So slight contention points there, but I mean, you know, as much as I sound like a hater on St. Clair Gold, like, I've watched these guys play. I know they're cold. Maybe I don't have them qualing, but, you know, they're good. They're going to be a match or two out. So at least they went up against a brick wall in West Virginia, who actually played like themselves. So we got a normal finish result out of this pool with the two top seeds making it out.
That was a good series, though. St. Clair Gold, I forget the final score in Game 4, but like they were this close to. I don't have it, but they were extremely close to forcing Game 5, and I think they very well could. I think it was like a Game 4 overtime was what happened in Game 4, but still, St. Clair Gold showing again a really high peak as they have done previously. And for them, same story as last semester. Where is their floor, and where can they settle in between that floor and ceiling? Because that's where they struggled last semester. It was too many instances of their floor showing up and being where they stand instead of hanging out near the top of the room. But we'll have to see next qualifier on the 28th what they're kind of made of. But any more talking points you wanna mention on Pool 3, TJ?
No, I think I'm good to go. Qual 4. Pool 4.
Let's do it then. Let's move along. This is the lower bracket, and this was Concord's pool, and this is the one that also had Baylor in it, playing on their 144 ping, as well as schools like Wichita State, Akron Blue, UTK Retirement Home, ETSU, Leslie in here as well. And out of all of this chaos, we got Cumberland qualifying after a lot of Game 5s here in the winners semis. So shout out Cumberland again.
Yeah, I mean, everybody give Hotshot his flowers, and also make sure you give Polar and Naya their flowers as well. I mean, the fact that they have been able to bring Hotshot up to speed, and the fact that Hotshot's actually met the bar and even pushed through it to qual through uppers, really, really proud of that team and how they're doing. Now, I also will say that there is some troll teams in the mix here, not to mention a Concord team that loses in the 5th game, then not to mention a Baylor that was on 120 to 150 ping. So this pool was supposed to be the craziest and the most dynamic at all levels, but it just ended up being Concord and Baylor having to go through losers. And, you know, I'm glad Cumberland of all the teams. If any team in the top 8 was going to get the best, or top 12, top 15 even, like if any of those teams were going to find a way to find, I guess, a path through the mess into a qual spot, I am very, very happy it was Cumberland.
And we'll start off with some results on the left side, because UTK Retirement Home, this is where my stream started, and we started off with a bang. ETSU, and I think it was Skyline said something about this, but apparently Leo had some issues that were affecting his performance on Sunday that were external to the game. And so that could be one excuse for East Tennessee State, but they've been struggling even outside of just Sunday. So it's not a complete excuse for them, unfortunately for the Buccaneers over there. But UTK Retirement Home, beating them is insane. I was kind of stunned, and that was just the second series that I streamed on the day.
Well, and I hate to be like, I've been on the low end for ETSU. Like, they are not the same team. Like, Landon and Adrift from a play style perspective alone, even if you want to argue skill, like, talk about play style alone. They are two different players with two different sets of strengths. So, you know, I had UTK making a decent run, and I did make the bold prediction that they were going to qual through losers. So I'm going to just say it. UTK retirement home is better than ETSU. Like, I'll say that. And that's been the case with any ETSU roster. Like, Tennessee has not lost ETSU, I think, ever, regardless of who's been on that team. So they got Taibu diffed, or they got Joe diffed, or they got Shaka diffed. I don't really care who. I just believe that in a best of 3, that favors UTK very heavily as the quote-unquote lower-ranked team. But then at the same time, I'm not absurdly shocked at an ETSU loss here, regardless of the excuse.
They didn't get any particular player diffed. I mean, they just got team diffed in that one. UTK retirement home looked like a good team because it was Joe and Shaka up front that were doing a lot of the heavy lifting in offense. Like, Taibu was still being his crazy self and beating 1 to 2 players, but Joe and Shaka were connecting with passing plays. Tap in Joe was present and alive on the field, and it was a fun series to watch, very back and forth. And unfortunately, they couldn't keep it going into their series against Akron, but still, UTK retirement home with the top 32 win in 2026. That's what I'm here for. And so we can move along, because actually this is significant. I don't have it linked, and it would take me a second to find it, but San Diego State ended up DQing in this bracket, and I think a day or two before this, AZAP put out a tweet that he was taking a break from Rocket League due to issues outside of the game. And so I'm hoping that AZAP comes back to us, but I think San Diego State will definitely be dropping off a little bit as a result of AZAP not playing, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, I really do wish the best for AZAP in his personal life. I really have no clue what's going on with those guys. But, I mean, like, from what I understand, he did still say he was going to be committed to Collegiate, which means we are going to see him at CECC. So even if everything goes wrong for San Diego State, we still get to see them at one of the biggest events of the year. So I'm not really too concerned about these qualifier level results for them. We'll see kind of how much he ends up playing with them, given everything he's dealing with.
There's the tweet for anyone interested. He's still is competing. I missed the reply, actually. I don't know if that was after I viewed it. Okay, it was actually after I viewed it. You can tell by the reply. So I did miss that part of the tweet. So AZAP, hopefully he's doing all right, but we will get to see him. They did lose in Game 7 in NECC last week to I think Southeastern Oklahoma was... No, I forget who they lost to. I'm not going to try and remember that off the top of my head. But we'll go back to the bracket now. But still, in the lower bracket, let's head down there, TJ, because this is where things continue to get weird, because we could just start on the top side here. George Mason's B team ended up eliminating ETSU from the bracket in Game 3. So shout out to Jay and Kevin and Jussie down there.
I mean, that right there is exactly what I'm talking about. Like, ETSU is in a mini rebuilding period where they have to rebrand their identity as a team. And, you can make, UTK retirement home, they have the skill level, like they have the experience and they have the track record where you could say that win. All right, maybe you give them that. But this GMUB win, like, don't get me wrong, I love George Mason as much as the next guy. Love Jay as much as the next guy. But this is an absolutely inexcusable win. If you were ranking the worst losses of the weekend, you have the St. Clair Fuel game. That one's up there. I think this one's in the top 3.
Yeah, I mean, we're losing to B teams out here. And for Cleveland State, like, sure, it's a little bit more okay because you weren't a top 32 lock like ETSU was supposedly supposed to be. And yeah, it's bad. That is a bad loss. And I hope ETSU figure it out. And in chat as well, 5 stars hitting us with the reason why SDSU did DQ in this bracket. AZAP had the baptism of his nephew that morning, and he's his godfather, so he couldn't play it. So okay, shout out AZAP for hanging out with his nephew that day. It's a big moment for the Zapatos family. So okay, that's why they DQ'd. So ignore my point previously. I did miss that reply that he was still playing in CRL. So I'm glad to hear that. But anyway, back to the bracket here. Albright actually losing very early on here. They get some revenge taken on by Wichita State up in the upper brackets. Wichita State beating Albright after Albright beat them, and it was like Open 1 or Open 2 last semester. And then Albright dropped down here and lose to the Michigan State C team.
Yeah, I mean, again, like, I kind of stopped. Like, once I kind of get to this pool, I kind of stop trying to think with my brain and kind of wrap my head around these results, and I am, again, like I'm at a loss for words. I'll even throw another result in the mix for conversation as well. Like, how about UT Arlington St. Clair Academy?
Yeah.
And loses round 2. Like, full respect to V-Bell and St. Clair Academy. I don't know if the other two are, like, I think I've heard of Jer before. I think he's good. I have no idea who Drowning Ducky is. That must be like a different start. Like, it must be a different player under a different Start GG name. It has to be. So I'm a little confused at a result like that. Also, if you're looking for a sleeper NECC result, how about Waterloo finding a win there just to end up having to play UTK Retirement Home? Again, this is the pool where I kind of stopped making sense of everything. I think if there was another top 48 result you really want to lean into, you look at UTD Senior Center versus Southeastern Oklahoma.
Yeah, that's good win for UTD at the very least, but Wichita State I think is one of my biggest stories coming out of this pool, because they get their revenge on Albright, then you play Concord. It is what it is. They drop down, they beat UTD, a team they should be beating. They beat UTK Retirement Home, a team that could be a trap series for Wichita State, but they get out of there no problem, and they beat Baylor on 144 ping, which, you know, still is beating Baylor on 144 ping. I kind of feel bad that Wichita State's best win of this semester and last comes on it against a team that is, yes, top 8, but playing on 144 ping. So I feel bad for Wichita State, but I was watching that series and they did look good in it as a team. I think they have figured things out from last semester and they're prepared to put together a better resume. Took a game off of Concord as well, but they do fall there. And so Wichita State, you know, it's not the breakout performance that I'm sure they will have after watching them and them passing the eye test, but they do beat some good teams here, all things considered.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And like, as much as maybe you love or you hate Boone, because he has one of those characteristics where, like, if you're a friend of his and you think he's funny, which me and you both do, like, we love the guy to death, but also if you're the average Twitter scroller or the average in-game quick chatter, you probably hate him. So the fact that they found some good wins here, I think it's going to be really funny to see if they can parlay that into maybe a qual match appearance, or maybe even a, like, 2 matches out. Like, I think that out of all the teams who actually had good results, who are really, really big sleeper teams, I think Wichita State, the way they were playing, granted, yes, they did get a Baylor with high ping. Still, you know, like I said about the Boise State win, you know, maybe you don't knock Baylor down 10 pegs, but you also don't knock Wichita State up 10 pegs either. Yeah. So, you know, they really have a chance to parlay that off the seeding that they're going to get. And I think that right there is about the only real positive you can talk about kind of moving down the lane. Also, shout out to Leslie. They basically beat everyone that they needed to and that they were kind of expected to beat. And in uppers, they lost to... Who do they lose to? I'm trying to find. They lost to Cumberland. So actually a pretty dang good day for Leslie. You know, they handled business against a Kennesaw B team and a semi-decent Charlotte roster. So fair play, Leslie. Just a pretty average day in the office. And then obviously Concord finally decided they want to play the game again. So good on them for making quick work of Akron Blue. But a pretty disappointing end to Akron Blue's run. That one hurts.
Yeah, losing in 3-0 fashion to the team that you beat in Game 5 in uppers is always kind of a heartbreaker. But that's what Concord will do to you. They'll troll. They'll put themselves in a bad spot. But similar to St. Clair, honestly, they win when it matters. And that's what they did here. They beat 3 good teams to make it to league play. And for Concord, that is the bare minimum, making league play. And so they do it as a bottom 4 seed in the first pool of top of 8 teams that make it, but they make it nonetheless. And that's kind of how it always goes with those 3. So good to see them in league play again. They're always demons there. And yeah, I mean, pool 4 actually not as crazy as I remember it being with all of these big names like UTK Retirement Home. And I can't believe we missed out, actually, now that I look back on it. We missed out on the Senior Center versus the Retirement Home in a series, the battle for old men supremacy. And I can't believe we missed that.
Okay, wait. Sorry, I cut out for like the last 10 seconds. I'm not gonna lie. Oh, no. I only heard maybe a word or 2 out of that. So you're gonna have to help me out here.
I mean, I was lamenting that we didn't get the UTD Senior Center versus the Retirement Home series. That was pretty much it.
I would have been cinema. If I ever get to see Shaka and Dalton go back and forth, or Joe Bro and Zora and so on, like, that would have been hilarious. But also, like, let's all, like, like, as much as I want to hope for a matchup like that, like, if Wichita would have lost to either one of those teams,
yeah,
my lord, that would have been a conversation that would have been very awkward to have going into power rankings. So I think it's for the best that it ended up that way.
All right, well, that's our coverage of the first Open Qualifier. It only took us an hour. we were out here thinking we were going to be done in an hour, TJ, and then we just talk about the brackets for a full hour. That's the way it goes. But, we've got other sections of the podcast to get to briefly. Let's toss the colleague poll up on screen, and we can kind of lump this in with our top 48 conversation. But how do you think colleague did going into Sunday here? Because I think maybe outside of after Bruton Parker, I'm pretty happy with this.
Yeah, I mean, with the way the poll turned out, like, for everybody kind of getting back into the swing of things pretty late, I would say, like literally right before we get into CRL, everybody gets together and creates this list. I feel pretty dang good about it. I am glad that St. Clair Gold found their way into the top 30. Like, as much as I was talking. Yeah, and as much as I was talking about the roster earlier and how maybe I have them predicted not to qual, like, they deserve their flowers. I think what's the funniest placements on this entire thing is this Fisher Navy and Tennessee roster being 28 and 29. I think those are the funniest results out of this colleague poll, but the rest I feel pretty good about.
Yeah, I mean, not to oust anybody, putting UTK Retirement Home in their top 30, but I mean, where did you have them ranked in your poll?
Which team again?
UTK Retirement Home.
Oh, I had them somewhere in the list. Nothing crazy. No, I actually need to go look, but I'm pretty sure that I had them somewhere in the top 20. Did they make top 25 for me? I don't think so.
You should go and look and confirm that for the stream for us all real quick, because them and Fisher Navy were the two teams in this top 30 that I don't think belonged, and I think there were squads like at the time, Carthage, I think, could have been in the conversation, but Davenport Red absolutely should have been in the top 30, in my opinion. But a team like Tennessee, where did you end up having them, TJ?
Oh, just like a light little 22. I mean, nothing crazy. No, look, I will say this: I didn't even rank Fisher Navy, so.
All right.
Give me that.
Yeah,
like,
you got that.
I don't believe Fisher Navy. I don't believe they're in the top 30, so I'll take that. Now, for UTK, like, I'm not going to, like, fully explain it because we're not doing top 48s today, but, like, off the history of this roster and how they play, like, I felt pretty good, like when, ranking them above ETSU. I got that right. They got them above ETSU. Maybe me having them above Bruton Parker. Okay, maybe I'm a hater for that, maybe. But, like, I had LCU at 28. Apparently, I knew something there, having them all the way down there. And then, like, Cleveland State, Davenport Red, like, those were free picks. But if somebody was upset at me because I had, like, Michigan State below UTK or Leslie below UTK, I'll hear you out. I'll absolutely hear you out. But I unironically will still defend that today.
All right. Well, 22 for UTK Retirement Home. I don't know. The last time I watched them play was losing to Shawnee State in the Bluegrass Boost Battle qualifiers. So I didn't think they deserved it right off rip. But that's what these polls are for, is for having a good conversation about it. But Davenport Red, I'll make the case specifically for them because they beat St. Clair Gold in their series to qualify for NECC D1. They beat Winthrop Academy as well. And outside of that, they've played and looked competitive against other teams in the top 48. They went to 7 with Indiana Tech, playing with Chippy, yes, but that's still a result I would expect from a top 30 team playing against Indiana Tech with Chippy. And so I think Davenport Red definitely got snubbed in this poll. I'll definitely keep making a case for them going into the next one, but Fisher Navy, they had a decent run in CRL, but coming into this ranking, they had just lost to Conestoga 4-2 in a best of 7 in the NECC. And their quality wins before that were against Florida Southern and Bruton Parker JV. And with that, on paper, good team, but I'm looking at the results to start the semester off because I seem to remember the 2/3 of that team that used to be on the A team getting pretty carried by Royales at times last semester. And so I didn't think they deserved it right off rip. And I still haven't kind of pooled the CRL results to see where everyone stands going into my next ranking, but I think they're still on the fence for me.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty confident about agreeing with you there. But also with this qual, I mean, like, I still don't know exactly where should a team who didn't get to play, like, where should a Syracuse get to go? Like, I don't know. Like, where does Ball State go after how poorly things went for them?
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of that middle, like the 11 to 20 range is there's a lot of arguments you can make. There's probably 20 teams you could argue could be in that range of 11 through 20 after this week. So
it's gonna be tough.
I'm intrigued to see what the next poll looks like.
It will be tough to rank, but we've got a pretty much a week to do it. We have this weekend off for the Boston Major, which is nice. We got some time to chill a little bit before that next open qual. And in the meantime, make sure you all are aware of the newest addition to the Collegiate Rocket League coverage scene. Shift Collegiate's been launched. Iceborg is the guy that's spearheading this project. And so while we're talking about entities that cover CRL as a scene, definitely go give Shift Collegiate some love. They were starting out with some live coverage of CRL this weekend. I think they did a pretty good job. All things considered, it's just Iceborg running it, but they've got nice looking graphics. They've got good headshots for some of these players. And so I'm glad to see Shift taking this step, and I'm really glad they've approved Iceborg to be running this account. It's a big step in the right direction for CRL.
Yeah, I mean, of all of these social media managers within the collegiate space, there's only a few. Like, it's really only ever been Shu and Iceborg, if we're being honest, who are running accounts like this. And then obviously BePic, who runs the Collegiate Exclusive Podcast Twitter account. So I'm really happy for Iceborg. He's been in the scene for a hot minute. He's been a part of the UNT system, and then even post from being at UNT, he's still stay involved and has always kind of been commenting on the scene. So I think he's a really good fit for it. And also, if you guys were watching those tweets, you also did notice that BePic and the Champ League crew were the ones doing preseason rankings. So that is also awesome. We got BePic up there. So as far as I'm concerned, great win for the team here.
Yeah, I mean, they reached out to get a quick list, and I submitted my top 10, which, you know, I'll admit was not looking the best after that ranking. I had Ball State Black pretty high up, but you know, it's all good. First ranking, helping Shift Collegiate out with posting some rankings, but hopefully we get you in there as well as Iceborg's figuring out what's what in the CRL space. But let's keep moving along since we are pretty deep into the show already. Let's look at the NECC. Let's preview the series that'll be played this week. Coming up tomorrow for the most part. I think there are some reschedules, we'll see. But we've got some pretty good series in the NECC. I won't be streaming. I'll be flying to Boston tomorrow afternoon. So I won't be streaming any NECC matches this week. But got Ole Miss versus Oklahoma Christian, already a great one. Fisher versus Kennesaw State, a really good one. Davenport Red versus Akron Gold, two of the better B teams in the scene, taking each other on. Indiana Tech and St. Clair Gold after this weekend should be a banger. But still, really good Group A matches this week.
Yeah, I mean, with the way that St. Clair Gold and Indiana Tech showcase themselves this weekend, like, as long as they both replicate that performance, that matchup should be the best one of the week, I would say, in either group in Division I. I think that's going to be a very important matchup of two teams who can really make a splash in playoffs. I mean, you saw what Indiana Tech did, found their way into a top two in NECC Division I this past semester, so I'm very, very excited for that. I also do think that after this past weekend, you wonder, can Kennesaw try and get back on their feet? Can they maybe force that series to go to 6 and look very competent there? Also, OC just had a really miserable 0-6 in qual matches. So does a Lunar-led Old Miss get past them? Who knows? Keep a very close eye on those storylines.
Banger series. We'll cover them next week on the podcast. But then over in Group B, let's see if we got any similar bangers. Bruton Parker, St. Clair Green. Could be a good one. Leslie versus Concord, maybe not a good one. We'll see which Concord shows up this series. Carthage versus Northwood, probably not a good one. Cleveland State Davenport, maybe could be a good one. I mean, Davenport lost to Leslie in Game 7 last week, and so maybe they let Cleveland State in it. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, with I don't know. Is that red or black, by the way? I can't tell.
That's black. It's black.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, if Cleveland State finds their way into a very close series with Davenport, I'd be fairly shocked based on the way that both these teams played. Like, again, like, Davenport's floor should be better than a maybe 50-70% peaking Cleveland State. Like, I do think Davenport are going to be okay. Now, as for this other set of series, like Northwood should be fine. St. Clair Green, if any team's going to get a win on a troll team, I think Bruton Parker's the one to do it. But I would also make that exact same argument about Leslie. Also, Concord just lost to St. Clair, and wasn't it like a 4-1 or something like that? It was 4-2. So Concord kind of needs to get their game differential back this week. They really do need a 4-0 or a 4-1. But I mean, knowing those guys very closely and working with them in RLCS and CRL, I'm not going to lie, guys. That one's probably going to 7, and Concord's going to win it.
They better take Leslie seriously. I think that stream match last week between Davenport and Leslie should have shown everyone here that you need to take Leslie seriously. And I think Concord's definitely a step above Davenport, but still, they should not let Leslie into that series, because if you get a peaking Colats, and I mean, Dre's defense looks unstoppable at times, like, Leslie could pull off an upset. We've already seen them do it against Northwood in NECC last semester, and they've done it against Davenport this semester. So Concord has to be careful, but I think they will be.
Yeah, I'm not too concerned about this week of NECC Div 1 matches. They're all pretty tame, except for the Group A matches we talked about.
Mm-hmm. Well, Division 2, it's actually not as tame. We got some pretty good ones. Fisher Navy versus Fuel. After this CRL qual, this might be my match of the week in the NECC.
Well, and good for them they rescheduled that matchup, because if it was played within the next few days, then we're looking at a different ball game. So huge mental reset for those teams. Good luck to them. Robert Morris, Shawnee State. I don't know who is representing Robert Morris nowadays. Who's on that roster?
Sheep, GJM, and Senti still. It's the same trio as last semester.
Okay. Hey, unironically, with the way Shawnee maybe was playing, that's a series where Taco Stash should 1v3. Don't get me wrong. But at the same time, play style wise, Robert Morris is pretty annoying to go against. And I love Sheep, and that's how they decide to play. So maybe there's a sleeper top 48, top 64 result in there. Maybe. But who knows? And then for Charlotte and Conestoga, this is a Charlotte team that will be playing at LAN this weekend in Charlotte, by the way. They will be at LAN in Charlotte. So they need to be up to form if they're going to try and make a name for themselves this week. So best of luck to them.
East A actually has a pretty stacked week of matches. I'm very excited. But East B, always stacked here. Their round 3 is Bruton Parker JV versus Florida Southern, South Carolina versus Winthrop Academy. These two teams cannot escape each other in the last couple of months. And then Florida versus KSUB. UF need a get back after losing to Daytona State last week, and then Daytona State gets the luxury of playing UCF, who are unfortunately turning into the punching bag of East B in a pretty stacked group. So Daytona State should take care of business there. Florida should take care of business. This one going to be a good one. Florida Southern should take care of business.
Yeah, I'm not overly concerned. I will say Florida Southern, from what we've seen so far, seem to be a team with a fairly decent ceiling, but at the same time, they seem to have a kind of low floor whenever maybe K-Frost or Asher aren't playing their absolute best. So can Manny find a way to counter? I don't know. Bruton Parker JV are in a pretty desperate need of a big win to kind of get back on track after the last few weeks of play. So best of luck to them. South Carolina Winthrop Academy, again, two teams who are going to be on LAN this weekend. I think that matchup should be like Game 6, Game 7 territory.
Yeah, I think it could be. It went. It was 3-1 when they played in C3 a couple weeks ago, but that could be a good one. And Reekers is wanting us to cover the win coverage for NECC. So shout out Fuel for beating Conestoga. Because actually, TJ, I think this is fair that we cover this. Because 4 days ago, I don't think this was a significant win on our radar, but now it is, considering the runs in CRL for both of these teams. So another shout out to Fanshawe and Conestoga.
Yeah, we should have seen it coming, I guess, whenever Fuel made quick work of Conestoga. So you shout out to you, Reekers, and the team. Best of luck to you guys getting ready for Qual 2 and for the rest of your matches.
All right, let's move along from the NECC over to NACE. Let's preview Super Conference this week, because there's some pretty good matchups here as well. And as always, it's not really shown, so you have to take my word for it. Shout out to my non-audio listeners, the only visual watchers, because on the right side of your screen, you got got Baylor and St. Clair kicking us off already. This one, TJ, I think is the match of the week here.
Well, and we get Baylor back in not back in North America, but back in the States, I should say. Count Hawaii, whatever you will. But regardless, we get them on normal ping is my point. And this is now going to be, I think, Baylor probably their most important test next to qualifier 2 in terms of where will they stand. Not to mention it's also a best of 5, and from what I'm expecting with a 16-team league play, I wouldn't be surprised if all of CRL league play is best of 5. So big test for both these teams, especially St. Clair, who had their worst loss probably ever, losing to Fuel. And now they get to go against one of the projected, I would say, top 2 to 3 teams in all of CRL. So we'll have to keep a close eye on that one.
Potential get back opportunity for ETSU here against Akron Blue, but it's going to be a really tough one. And then Cumberland playing Winthrop. We'll see if Garrett G ends up playing. Probably not. That's been how it's been going in NACE so far. And then you got Ball State versus West Virginia. And this is a series where Ball State needs kind of a get back against a good team. Again, going to be tough, but they need to recover after last Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, without a doubt, there is no question Ball State needs to find a win against this team, because West Virginia was one that I think many of the panelists, or not panelists, but rankers had in the top 4, top 5. Like, people were very high on West Virginia for about a week or two whenever Cosmic was announced. And then West Virginia has a little bit of a hiccup in the qualifiers. Ball State had a huge hiccup, a full trip and faceplant, if you will. So both teams need a big bounce back. And if Ball State finds what I would predict is an upset over West Virginia, I think it's going to change that team's dynamic completely.
Well, those are the Super Conference series. They're happening tonight, and the majority, if not all, of these schools stream their matches. So if you're a CRL sicko, you will be tuned in to these broadcasts. But we can scroll down as well, see if we get any interesting series happening. Cleveland State 3-1 over UNT. Okay. Anything else? Not really. When you scroll down in NACE. Oh, yeah? You're interested in that one?
I mean, Bowling Green used to be a really big sleeper team with a B+ player or two, but I don't think they have them anymore. So we can keep scrolling.
Yeah, I did a similar thing. Bowling Green still catches my eye for some of their BBB runs and QCC qual runs, but nothing these days, unfortunately, for them. And UT Arlington versus Kaiser, that's not a bad one. Texas Tech versus Conestoga right here could be some good series.
Yeah, I mean, with Kaiser and Texas Arlington, those teams are pretty dang even. Now, granted, based off recency bias, that should be a Texas Arlington win. Yeah. But I could see it going to 5. And then I'll say the same thing about Conestoga. Like, on paper, Conestoga is the much better team, but Texas Tech has some pretty, even in their losses, they've gone the distance. Like, whenever in CCS, they've looked pretty decent. Even though that's a pretty niche league calling in terms of kind of content and strength of schedule. Sure. But, I mean, it's a top 48. Like, I could expect anything from those teams, but I don't see Conestoga struggling too hard. Maybe a 3-1 with an OT in there, maybe 2 OTs.
We'll see what happens. And one more shout out as well, since Karsune Miku's in chat. We love our player viewers. You guys are what makes this podcast so special. And of course I cut it off, but he wanted me to go back and shout out Texas A&M for this Game 7 win over San Diego State. And 5 stars did say, for the record, Karsune, I'm saying this because you made me go back, but Sean was playing on a hot spot for this one. Sean's internet, again, the bane of SDSU's existence. But he did say that Texas A&M is still a very good team. So shout out to Texas A&M. They also beat UC Santa Barbara 4-0, and UC SB is still a solid team. So we'll shout out A&M there.
Hey, how about that for West Central? Maybe we actually do get a very entertaining West Central and Div 2.
We might actually.
It's had a weird history in the past. It's had a very odd history, but I'm excited.
Is Fatal going after you in Twitch chat right now? Is he clipping your takes?
Story. He definitely deserves to clip me. I deserve that. So, if Barris gets off League of Legends and starts playing the game again, then I'm taking full credit if St. Clair Gold quals. So, Fatal, let it be known.
Yeah, St. Clair Gold sucks. You can clip that, use it as fire. But here we go. We got a big announcement from NACE today. This actually happened a couple hours ago, as NACE have announced their LAN location and weekend dates. April 23rd through 26th. 26th. And so top 8 per title. This is actually what I've been waiting for. Top 8 will make it to the NACE LAN. So I imagine that is the top 8 for playoffs. You'll get the standard NACE seeding where the committee goes through, takes Super Conference results, mixes that in with the other group results, and then you play out the bracket, getting the top 8 that will play on LAN at the Full Sail Armada Arena. And that's one of the better facilities in the Southeast. So I'm excited to see NACE going back there.
Yeah, this is easily single-handedly the best varsity level competition and school collaboration. It's easily the best one in the nation because Full Sail runs a wonderfully tight ship. Sari is one of the best directors and also one of the best eyes as a broadcaster and as a producer. I mean, she is an expert when it comes to sports and esports production, and she's also a great friend of the podcast as well. So very happy to see Full Sail winning. They also work very closely with EA. So if you don't know what their studio looks like, go watch any of the EA Pro tournaments that have been hosted in Florida in the last 2-3 years. They've all been at Full Sail. So very excited to see them host another great year of NACE Championships.
Yeah, Sari is a great person to talk to as well. If any of you ever get the chance at like the CECC or the collegiate mixers, really bubbly person, really fun to talk to. She's been around esports for a while now. But that's NACE, and excited to see them going back to Full Sail. And we can look at now our top 48s briefly, since we were going to do a quick conversation about that. And also, I want to use this as our opportunity to make predictions as to who we think is going to make it to the CRL League play of 2 weeks from now. But here we go. That is our top 27. I'm gonna crop it better as we go along here. But this is our top 32-ish. I'll make it look a little bit better, and we can start talking about how we think that this past weekend impacts our rankings here.
Well, I hate that I didn't update mine from my colleague rankings.
Oh, okay, did you not?
Wait, is this live? Is this live?
Yeah, this is from the spreadsheet. If you want to copy and paste real quick.
Okay, you can go ahead and start the conversation. I'm going to fix that real quick.
Okay, I want to make the list a little bit bigger so we can see it. But I think the most significant drops, like Ball State losing like they did, being at number 8. I think that's definitely the biggest visual drop that we'll see going into the next set of rankings. Ball State Black I had pretty high as well. I really believed in them. Unfortunately, they did not have a good weekend. And where else can we talk? Cumberland qualifying as well. That definitely bump up as a result of Ball State faltering. And outside of that, everyone else in similar positions, I would say. Maybe Davenport could drop. I had them at 16. Syracuse didn't play for you, and so they probably gonna stick around a similar spot. Yeah, I mean, nothing too terribly different. Oh, the Columbia for me, I had them at 23. I think they'll definitely be jumping up. I think.
Yeah, there's definitely a few takes I got right and a lot that I got wrong. I mean, we both got Ball State pretty wrong. I got George Mason pretty wrong. I definitely got St. Clair Gold extremely wrong, and I deserve my hate there, absolutely. I'll take that. I probably missed on, let's see, who else did I really miss on? Davenport, I think they're probably okay where they are. Kennesaw as well.
Yeah.
I think I just missed on Columbia, so I deserve my hate there. But you also had them at 23, so I'm not the worst in the room.
No, I told this to Rhyolite as well. We were talking about it in DMs. Like, similar situation. Like, I know this was a good team, but similar to last semester, I needed results before I bumped them way up, because I started them high in my rankings last semester, and they didn't show the results. He said that the motivation for the team really wasn't there. Excelst in his last semester didn't have that same kind of passion for the game, and so the results suffered as a result of that. And so I was wanting to see something from Columbia, considering this is 2/3 of that team from last semester, and they showed it, and so that'll definitely be reflected in the rankings. But had Leslie high because they had beaten Davenport last week on stream, which was a quality win for them. Akron Golds, Man, Akron's a weird team because they had bad loss in both uppers and lowers, and then they beat Ball State in the lower bracket. So I don't know what I'm gonna make of them. ETSU, I had it 25, and they're gonna be kind of on the chopping block a little bit when it comes to their top 30 standing after last week.
Yeah, I mean, again, like after this weekend, I mean, you might as well throw out all the rankings. Might as well just take the entire top 30. Like me and you've done top 48s. Might as well throw all those results out. Like if we really got deep into the next section of our rankings, like 31 all the way to 48, it'd probably be another mess down there as well. I just like, I don't even want to comment on it. Like I already missed St. Clair Gold. I'm not looking to get clipped for Barris again, so I'm just gonna let that one go.
Yeah, things slip through the cracks sometimes. That's part of what us not committing our full-time lives to CRL does. So it happens. But like Davenport Red was in my top 30 for sure. St. Clair Gold was right there. St. Clair Gold will jump up obviously for them showing where their peak can be with their run this past weekend. Cleveland State will tank. Carthage will tank. We didn't see anything from WCTC or San Diego State on my end. I see Cleveland State will definitely tank for you. Do you think Lubbock Christian will move down? You've got them at 28. I've got them at 26. What are you thinking with them? Just like immediate gut reactions without looking at all the results.
I don't think they drop out of my top 30. I think they're going to be at the bottom or maybe one spot up. I don't think I drop them out completely.
That's fair enough. I think that they've got a lot of growth potential and are still a good team on paper. One day won't fully affect that. But for me, Wichita State will definitely jump up. They're another team like Columbia that I've been waiting on the results from to bump up. And they suffered a lot more, even with the slight roster tweak, just because of their results last semester and how they didn't show up to the events and the tournaments that they needed to make up for not playing a ton. But now they've got that. Albright will probably drop for me after their really short run because they don't play in a ton outside of PCL and CRL. Winthrop Academy, Maryland, Fisher Navy could be bumped up. We'll see what happens, but that is kind of it. I'm not going to crop 40 through 48. Like, you guys can figure what we've got down there, and we'll get our top 48 rankings updated for next week. But some actually big changes, I think, with several teams, but a lot kind of staying the same.
Yeah, I mean, again, I haven't got to sit down and look at all the results.
Me neither.
So I don't really know. I don't really even know where to envision where my bottom, like my 15 to 30 range, which starts with Syracuse, funny enough, I really don't know what to expect, especially with how, like, for example, if Ball State looks bad, right? If OC really struggled to punch through, if a team like Akron kind of like had their moment, but then lost to two teams where they were projected to lose against, then like, does that mean that Syracuse is about to enter into a war zone? Does that mean that teams like Columbia, are they gonna have to enter into a back-to-back war zone where they have to try and upset a team better than Fisher? Like, I don't know. And like, I feel even worse for teams like LCU, who had the talent to get to qual match or maybe a match off, but I think their play style, obviously it's been shown to be flawed right now. I think they're going to be very pool dependent. So too many question marks for me to even begin to go from there now.
Cool. Well, with all the question marks in mind, let's put the rankings back up there so we have a list of the teams now, TJ. And let's predict who the next teams to qual are going to be. 8 spots. You got to let me know who you think those 8 teams are going to be. And we can start with like maybe a top 4 of kind of almost guaranteed locks for that qualifier. Because a reminder, we are getting Syracuse, Michigan State, Boise State, and Baylor all back for qual 2, because essentially Baylor and Boise didn't really play. 144 ping is not easy to play with, but we'll sit up in our chairs for chat right now. But let's see if we can predict who's gonna make it, because I mean, when you're looking at teams that just fell short, like your Baylor, Oklahoma Christian, St. Clair Gold, Akron, I have to feel like your Baylor, Oklahoma Christian definitely locks, and I think Ball State is still a lock to get in for me.
Yeah, I'm currently trying to make sure that I correctly copy over who did qual, so that I don't accidentally misspeak on a team. So we got Winthrop, Maryville, Concord, Northwood, Fisher, Cumberland. I'm missing somebody.
Northwood. Did you get Cumberland's?
Yes, have Cumberland.
We've got West Virginia, St. Clair. You didn't grab.
Missing WVU.
Fisher.
Missing St. Clair.
Maryville.
All right, I got them.
All right,
I got the 8.
We got our 8.
All right, now let's talk about who's going to qual. So let's start with, I think Baylor is the instant gimme.
Yep, I agree.
They should be the highest. Now, this is the issue. St. Clair, or not St. Clair, the CRL seating committee does not have a good history. So what I'm worried about is how bad are you going to punish Baylor for showing up?
There's no way.
Like how bad are you going to punish them for showing up and playing versus not playing? I don't know. They should be the highest seed without a doubt in my mind. Versus whereas Ball State, do they get punished to where they end up as like an 8 seed or like a 9 seed in Qual 2? Because if that happens, that ruins a lot. And also, let it be known, now granted, it was Baylor with JT, but Ball State and Baylor have played for CRL spots before. And it has been a very, very tight conversation between those two teams. So they both made roster moves. Obviously, the skill gap's a little different now, but I think Baylor's a gimme. I think OC, I think they're a gimme.
Yep.
Boise State, I feel really, really good when it comes to those 3 rosters.
Oh, yeah. Boise
and I'm going to say Ball State. I'm going to say Ball State.
All right.
I think they're going to be okay.
Completely agree. Like Baylor, Ball State, Oklahoma Christian, and Boise should be the 4 locks. And with their performances over on last Sunday as well, I think Indiana Tech and Akron should be in that conversation as well. Indiana Tech will be playing with Velocity for that next qualifier. That is guaranteed. Bluey confirmed it in chats. I think Indiana Tech should be there. I mean, they lost to 2 qualifying teams in Game 5, like 2 top 8 qualifying teams in Game 5s. And then Akron showed an ability to beat the teams they're supposed to beat to qualify, because they were a top 16 team going into the bracket.
Yeah, I mean, I'm also going to add Columbia onto that list with no issue.
Yeah.
I think Indiana Tech, Akron, Columbia. That right there brings us to 7. So
man.
I went ahead and highlighted mine that are green. So now I think is where now we're going to have a really interesting conversation about which team. And this is the worst part. I think both Davenport and Kennesaw aren't going to make it. I think they sell it.
Yeah, I don't think Kennesaw State didn't look super strong in the bracket, and honestly, they've had a pretty bad run of form in the last couple brackets that they've played in. I mean, when you look at DreamHack Atlanta, you look at the closed qualifier for CRL last semester, and you look at Sunday, they haven't done well, and even in the opens last semester, they were never really tested with quality competition in bracket play because they were a high seed and they maintained that standing by beating the teams they had to beat. And so when they have to beat a squad like a Davenport, Syracuse, Akron, Indiana Tech, Columbia, George Mason, I don't know if they're going to be able to do that. And I see you've highlighted UTK Retirement Home and Akron Gold. What does the yellow mean?
So I'm stuck between 2. I'm making the bold prediction Syracuse will not qual.
Whoa, really? Okay.
I think it's going to be Akron Gold. I think Akron Gold gets that last spot. That's my pick for the 8th one. I think Syracuse gets screwed by the bracket. I think Syracuse has to play like a Ball State and losers or some crap like that. Or maybe they have to play like an Akron or an Indiana Tech and losers. I think they're going to get screwed because they didn't get to play. And I think that they're going to get caught in the crossfire. I don't really have enough faith in Davenport or Kennesaw. George Mason and Ball State Black didn't look like contenders to me. And Akron Gold, I mean, chat brought it up earlier. Like Akron Gold, though they had a bad loss, they had a really good win. And also they got RLCS experience off the very most recent Open. I think they're built for this. I think this is Jan's moment.
Okay, I disagree with the Akron Gold pick. I don't think they've got form that I can beat a team like we just rattled off to qualify. I think it is Syracuse that ends up making it because yes, they had a rough weekend on land, but that team unfortunately is not a LAN team right now. They like on home turf. I watched them last semester lose to Michigan State with a home crowd behind them, and then they go into this Hawaii LAN, which we can talk about a little bit as well, and they get a genuine even ground shot against a Baylor team that lost to Boise on day one, a Boise team that is beatable for Syracuse's level, but had a good weekend, ended up beating Syracuse and Baylor on day one before losing in the grand final to Baylor. And Michigan State as well. There's a rivalry there, Michigan State and Syracuse. And Syracuse came up short against them on LAN. But I think online, Syracuse is a different beast. They are all on super high hours. They have a super high peak. I think that team is built for bracket play like this. Online bracket play where they're having a long day. They've got the hours of resilience built up with their rank grinds. And I think that's my 8th pick.
Statistically, it's the right pick. I'm not gonna fight on that. I just have a really bad feeling. I just have a really bad feeling that Qual 2 is gonna be bad. And also, like, with Columbia being a pick of mine to Qual, like, these are teams that we originally had down the pipeline, and I think that all of us as rankers have had to kind of regain and kind of sit back and get back into the flow of kind of like, what are we watching? Like what do you expect? And this is the tightest that CRL's ever been, and it's only gotten closer and closer and closer each semester. So I gotta at least get one sleeper pick. I've already made half the chat mad by picking UTK Retirement Home in my top 25. So that's my sleep. That is my actual unironic sleeper pick. Is Akron Gold is the last team. That's my unironic sleeper pick.
I respect it. That team should have a good peak. I mean, Jonathan, Patty, and Oxy are all players that can peak online. I think we'll definitely peak on LAN once we get to that portion of the semester. But it's going to be a fun qual. I definitely think teams might get screwed by seeding with all the chaos of Qual 1. But that's the beauty of CRL sometimes. It's why we talk about all this. But let's move along to the end of the podcast here. So we got some accolades to give out. Shout out to Leslie for taking the clip of us giving Collat the CEP Player of the Week and putting that out there and tweeting about it. I love it. It makes my heart so warm when schools take our Player and Team of the Week accolades and post about them. It really does make me smile so much. So shout out Leslie for that. But I'm gonna start because I want to talk about my team of the week. It's a team that I love to talk about. I enjoyed watching them the last several semesters through different iterations of the roster. And finally, they've got the iteration of the roster that will take them to new heights in CRL. And that's Columbia. I watched them straight up playing and destroying Bruton Parker and then looking competitive-ish against the Thanos squad of Maryville. And then they fall short against Fisher, who were looking extremely good as well as a full trio. Royales has the support he needs, and they ended up beating my CEP team of the week in Columbia. But I think Columbia deserves some flowers because we were pretty harsh on them last semester.
Yeah, it's funny how my team of the week pans out because regardless of what I said about this team, at 4:49 p.m. Eastern, so 10 minutes before we started the podcast, that's when I put in my picks for player and team of the week. And they're both St. Clair oriented. So let it be known.
I can do the version history if you don't believe him, chat. I can do it.
Let it be known at 4:49 p.m. I put St. Clair Gold as my team of the week because regardless of how I feel about any team and their chances in the future, based off of CRL quals alone, St. Clair Gold was very, very inspiring, I would say. They were very, very confident. They're very, very what's the word I'm trying to think of? Composed, like very, like, you know, they did everything that St. Clair Gold at their peak is supposed to do. So they were my team of the week that I picked before we started the episode. Mm-hmm. So let it be known. And then I'll go ahead and segue since they're both St. Clair. Zai is my player of the week because St. Clair Green had one of their worst losses ever. Mm-hmm. And then if there was anybody on that team that I put stock into as the more experienced leader, working with Zai very closely, I have no doubt in my mind that he was one of the biggest mental forces in bringing that team back to where they needed to be, alongside the coaching system that St. Clair has as well. Like, shout out to Thermal Rex and the whole program of St. Clair, because they really do develop not only the coaching side of things, they develop players as well. So both of my player and teams of the week are St. Clair.
Shout out to the St. Clair program. I mean, always competitive, very deep program. They lost Arju, and they still qualify for CRL after suffering that pretty harsh loss. So that says a lot about a team right there. And I think we're kind of thinking in a similar vein when looking at our accolades this week, because my player of the week is Drewy, a guy that has kind of been attacked a little bit at the start of the semester after, not for leaving Michigan State. I think everyone understands why he left Michigan State to go join Northwood. But like when you're comparing Zanil and Drewy, I think a lot of people have Zanil as very much the better player. And so we all expected Northwood to suffer as a result of that. And what does Northwood do when you start to doubt them like this? They come out and they qualify through uppers, beating West Virginia, a team that I think we both had in our top 3 going into the Open Qualifier. So shout out to Drewy. If I wasn't doing Columbia for my team of the week, I'd do Northwood as well for that team performance. But Drewy silenced the haters on Sunday, and I'm looking forward to what hopefully at some point is a Baylor versus Northwood matchup in CRL.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like of all of the players of the week and of all the teams and all the performances, I'm really happy that you picked Drury, because this is somebody that going into preseason, like we talked a lot about the moving of Zanil from Northwood to Baylor and how this would be a huge knock for Northwood. And then what do? They go out and they shut everybody up.
Yep.
And I didn't get to watch, like, I don't know if Kev Dog's in chat. I didn't get to watch the Northwood games. I'm going to have to go back while I get time and look back, but obviously Drewy is playing wonderfully, and he must be fitting in that system perfectly. And I also think that, again, they're coached really, really well. So Drewy is in a system with 2 very experienced CRL champions and RLCS pros, and then also he gets one of the best coaches to touch the game, especially to touch CRL. Big shout out to Drewy. He deserves it.
All right, and that, with our accolades being distributed, now brings us to the final segment of the show, and this is usually our Scholastic Minutes or like 0-second segment, and for this episode it is something that's actually pretty significant to me, being on the community side, both of us being on the community side, grassroots side, because a lot of what allows the grassroots scene to function comes from Baka's mod. The custom overlays, the auto uploads to ball chasing. Like, my YouTube channel wouldn't exist without the auto uploads to ball chasing, because a lot of players use that to put their replays online. And so the fact that Easy Anti-Cheat is coming in to combat the bot problem and effectively removing Baka's mod from the game, this is a significant change that, honestly, once again, is another instance of the Psyonix and Epic team just completely slapping the community and grassroots scene in the face without offering any kind of alternative for what they know is a very significant tool to what makes a lot of the grassroots scene run here. So I'm pretty annoyed at this, and honestly, with all that's gone on the last several years with like the RLCS and the product that's being put out now compared to what it was several years ago, this feels like the beginning of the end for someone like me being heavily involved in the Rocket League scene, because once again, Psyonix is showing that it does not care. I understand combating the bot problem, but you can also find a way to do that without taking away some of the biggest tools that the community scene has to put on high quality looking events, because that's what gets you sponsors. That's what makes players want to compete in your tournaments. And so, another instance of them really stepping on the toes of their community, but hopefully it does remove bots. That's the upside here.
Well, I mean, clip that and share it out. That might be the most angry you're going to hear Bepic ever, and it's all for very good reason, because the issue that I have with this issue, like, my point is a little more conservative than Bepic's, because I don't believe there's any other steps to eliminate the cheating problem, at least to the efficiency that Easy Anti-Cheat will probably do it at. At least I assume and I hope so. But then the other side of it is that I 100% agree with you, Bepic, in the fact that it's about knowing or acknowledging the alternative. But the only thing that it says is the part where it says we will allow certain partners to be basically whitelisted to play online matches, private matches, and tournaments with anti-cheat turned off. That is the part that I'm very concerned about, because, for example, is it going to be like Psyonix approved streamers, aka it would be the people who like co-stream CRL, for example, which would be Champ League, it would be you, it would be me, it'd be KevDog, it'd be Pyro, like that makes sense. And then is it going to be RLCS and their co-streamers? Like those make sense. But the issue is with Collegiate Esports, specifically Collegiate Rocket League, the amount of money in the development and client side adaptations, there is no other game with this amount of investment and coding and involvement than Rocket League, especially in the college scene. So that is the part that I'm really concerned about, because, for example, like we both have a great friend, a friend of a podcast whose name is Nate Dogg. He works over at North Carolina. Is it Greensboro or is it Wilmington? I forget.
UNCG.
Okay, Greensboro.
Or,
so like
no,
we love Nate to death.
It's Wilmington. Sorry, Wilmington.
Okay.
Too many UNCs. Sorry.
So regardless, he is a Carolina native in one of the fastest growing collegiate Rocket League systems and collegiate esports systems, which is the Carolinas. And he runs a wonderful kind of dual state league. And I know he relies on Barl and Carl very heavily. I know plenty of professional coaches who rely on Carl very heavily. Even when I was working with 100X and Lotus 8 this past season, we rely on those side stats to look at and find outliers. So it is absolutely worth noting that it is going to change the way that pros and regional events and school events, and I'm even more concerned about like high schools. Like that system needs all the support they can get, and they're not going to have a chance at getting a partnership. I'd be shocked at all. So who knows what will happen, but before I have a huge anti-reaction, I'm going to wait and see what the partner system looks like, because I think people like us are safe, I assume. Well, but knowing Psyonix and knowing Epic,
I'll tell you right now, I got a DM last night after I put out my tweet about wanting to be a partner, and I'm not going to say who it was, because I don't know where the message came from and if that would affect any relationships, but I was told by a source I'm pretty confident with that from Psyonix directly, they were told that these exceptions are designed to be temporary, and so TOs can be whitelisted for a couple of hours while a tournament is going on, and then it turns off. And so that would mean that you could, yes, get your overlay and Bacchus mod support or whatever for, like a CRL stream. But then when you're looking at other events like weekly leagues or something like that, it's looking like it's going to be temporary. And so I don't know how involved they're going to be. And the track record of Psyonix when being involved with what's going on in the community is pretty awful. And so I have low hopes for what ends up happening with those partner accounts or whatever it'll end up being. So I'm pretty pessimistic about this. I've stopped being an optimist when it comes to the competitive Rocket League scene, and that's where I stand on this one. I didn't think they would actually go through with this, honestly, even with the leaks. And it's a change that I'm not happy about, but hopefully it ends up working out. But I've said that about a lot of things with competitive Rocket League for a long time. So that's the final segment of the show. TJ, you got any more strong thoughts on it before we close out?
No, I mean, we ended up talking very much heavily about the CRL brackets and our takes there. So I apologize for anybody who's expecting a normal episode, but you got all of our takes possible. And you know what? We get to spend more time with you guys. So no complaint by me, but pretty good show. I'm glad we got a lot of hot takes out there. I think I got the chat the most riled up I've seen them in a take of mine ever. So that's a win for me.
Yeah, I know. Chat was riled up. I was riled up at the end, and we got to stop going into shows. This is probably the 4th or 5th time we've gone in being like, all right, prepare for like a 60-minute show, and then we've almost hit about, I think we're at an hour 45 right now. So that's the Collegiate Exclusive Podcast, everybody. Do make sure you follow us on Twitter. We don't post the live event tweets like Shift Collegiate and Champ League, but we still have some pretty good coverage, I think. So follow us at COL Exclusive Pod on Twitter, and then we're on Spotify as well. I upload these VODs to my YouTube too, so watch us on all platforms, but most of all, support CRL. Thank you all for tuning in once more for another great week of Collegiate Exclusive Podcasting. Farewell, everybody. If you'll be in Boston, I'll see you there. If not, we will see you next week for another stream. Have a great night, everybody.